If the person is brown, they need to be rounded up and put into quote unquote alligator Alcatraz, a concentration camp in Florida. If the person is white, we let them start a business and become Elon Musk.
On Piers Morgan Uncensored, the explosive confrontation you can't miss. MSNBC's Reid takes on Piers Morgan in a no-holds-barred battle over race, immigration, and deportation policies under Trump and Obama. Tensions rise as they clash over claims of fascism, racial identity, and hypocrisy. This fiery 13-minute segment exposes deep political and racial divides, shaking America to its core.
What's happening is that Stephen Miller has said he wants 3,000 people a day rounded up. And he has said he doesn't care where they have to get them. He wants ICE going into Home Depot. He wants them going on construction sites, going onto farms and dragging brown people and into detention. They're putting people in private prisons that are unregulated by the federal government. We've heard stories of people eating rotten food, having to use
you still haven't told me what you would do
for the restroom. And so the reality is what we have right now is we have a system of literal terrorism against brown migrants simply because Stephen Miller does not want them in the country.
As you know, they're not all brown, as you know.
Well, the vast majority are.
Well, but you haven't answered my question also. If you were running the southern border, if you were in charge, if you were the border czar, what would you do? Would you let them all in, or would you stop some of them coming in?
The first thing that I would do is...
Reid unleashes a harsh indictment of selective immigration enforcement under Trump, calling out systemic racial bias and likening it to a modern-day fascist terror tactic.
To look at some of the actual legislation that's been put on the table before, you have a very small number of immigration judges who deal with people who are presenting themselves for asylum, which, by the way, is perfectly legal. It is legal to present yourself for asylum, but there are scarcely any judges doing that work. Multiple times, bipartisan, members of Congress, the House and Senate, have tried to pass legislation that would increase the number of those judges. If you actually had enough people to adjudicate asylum cases at the border, it would make that easier. I've actually been to the southern border and looked at the process and looked at the previous version of detention that Donald Trump did in his first term. First of all, it was horrific, and it was abusive even then to children.
And you was outraged by Barack Obama's deportation program of over three.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that Barack Obama made some compromises that I do not think were morally sound in order to try to lure Republicans into doing the immigration reform.
Do you know how many people he deported?
Since Marco Rubio joined the Gang of Eight.
Do you know how many people Barack Obama deported in 8 years?
I'm sure you're going to tell me.
Well, why don't you guess?
I don't know and don't care.
Well, hang on. You don't know and you don't care. You've just given me...
Because it's not the issue.
You're
trying to make the issue the southern border.
Joy. You've just given me... Joy.
Joy. The point is...
Joy. You've just given me... Joy.
Was not dragging women
and let me finish.
You've just... nursing babies apart and taking...
Joy. You've just given me...
I'm sure going to tell me it's your main issue.
You've just given me
it's not my main issue. My main issue is that what we're seeing...
I'm trying to finish my sentence. You've just given me a lengthy monologue attacking Donald Trump's aggressive deportation policy. And I've simply said to you, there was a Democrat, a black Democrat president of the United States for 8 years. I'm simply asking, given that you're obviously all over every detail of the Trump deportation policy, and given you were on the airwaves in America on a daily basis through Obama's tenure, how many people did he deport in 8 years?
I do not know. You'll tell me, I'm sure.
Have a guess.
But it's probably more than 1 million people. I'm quite certain.
Have a guess.
Because I think each 2 million.
Right, it was 3 million.
Okay, and your point being what?
My point being, are you as shocked by that as you are claiming to be by Trump?
It is not deportations
Many of them were brown.
That are shocking. Wait a minute. Can I answer your question?
The majority were brown.
One moment. It is not deportation in and of itself that is what is shocking to people. There are two things that are shocking. Number one, well, I'll do three. One, It is not deportation to render someone to a third-party country they have no connection to.
I agree.
Rendering people to El Salvador is shocking.
And that's why he's coming back.
That was not done by Biden.
That's why that guy's come back.
It was not done by George W. Bush. All right. So that is shocking.
Yeah.
Number two,
that's why he came back.
People with deporting. Well, that's only one person. They deported more than 200 people.
The case you're talking about, he's come back
to that gulag. Yes, but they deported more than 200 people, 70% of whom CBS has determined had no criminal record
whatsoever.
But why
are you changing the subject from Obama's deportation policy?
I'm telling you, the three things that are shocking are not deportations themselves. It's deporting people, number one, to third-party countries like the Sudan, where they have no ties whatsoever, simply for the cruelty of doing it, essentially paying third-party countries.
But I asked you about your response to Obama. Obama deported more people than any president in American history.
If someone receives... Piers, my family are immigrants. If there's a deportation process, at the end of that adjudication, you are deemed to be deportable and need to be deported.
But you're missing my point, Joy. Boy, I'm trying to politely ask you, do you condemn...
Is different from what we're seeing now.
But here's my point. In the interest of fairness, do you condemn Barack Obama's deportation policy, given that he deported more people, let me finish, more people than any American president in history in his 8 years?
What an absolutely disingenuous argument, Piers, because what people are yes. No, I'm gonna explain it if you'll allow me.
You didn't even know how many he deported.
Because I just said that, first of all, I think it was a moral compromise that I disagree with vehemently that Barack Obama made to try to lure Republicans who were never going to really come to the table for immigration reform. I disagree with what he did.
Morgan hits back with staggering voting stats that challenge typical racial voting assumptions, fueling the fiery debate on race and political allegiance.
But if there's a process for deportation, that's one thing. If you are rendering people with no process, if you are rendering them to third parties, and if you are kidnapping them off the streets, as if this is 1930s Germany or South Africa in the 1980s, that is what I find objectionable and I find fundamentally fascist, and will stand by that every day. What Donald Trump is doing is a moral horror.
I hear you.
And if you can't see that, I don't know what to tell you.
I hear you. All I'll tell you is that Obama deported a hell of a lot more people than Trump.
But that isn't the issue. The issue
and most of them were brown. And last time I checked, Barack Obama isn't white. So it may not be a race thing in the way you're telling me.
Now you're the one obsessed with race. You want to make this a racial argument. The argument is that the Obama administration,
you made it a racial
the Biden
argument.
Administration, because Donald Trump
you said Trump is deporting people based on their skin color.
Well, it is what he does. He plays racial politics as a matter of course.
Obama did it too, only worse.
It's what his politics were all about. His politics are about removing as many non-white people clearly from the country as they can, 3,000 a day.
And that's what Obama's policy was too.
Apparently the policy here.
That's what Obama's policy was too.
No, it was not. And there was no rendering of people. There was a process for deportation. And you know that it's materially different.
As we sit here, Obama deported more people pro rata per year than Trump has ever done.
How many did he render to a third party? How many did he render to a third party? Because what he's also doing
is outraged by Trump, but you're not outraged by Obama.
I'm absolutely outraged by fascism and by snatching people off the
But Obama wasn't
streets.
a fascist because
no process,
he's not.
Absolutely, I'm
and because Obama's got brown skin, he's not a fascist. Is that your policy?
Well, that's your simplistic, racialized way of looking at it. Because that is what you're doing on this show.
It's yours about Trump.
Of course it is. No, mine is about fascism.
I want to move on.
Trump is acting
I don't want to spend the whole time talking about this.
Person that behaves the way he does, trying to take people's citizenship away, denaturalizing. That's Idi Amin behavior. There's a black fascist that you can compare him to.
Let's move on to. I want to just play a clip of when you lost your job at MSNBC. Let's watch this.
My show had value, and that that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I try not to cry on TV. And whether it's talking about any of these issues, and yes, whether it's talking about Gaza and the fact that we as the American people have a right to object, to little babies being bombed. And I am not sorry that I stood up for those things, because those things are of God. And I'm a church girl too, and those are the things that I was taught were of God. And so I'm not sorry. I'm just proud of my show.
Now, look, you're perfectly entitled to be proud of your show. Many people enjoyed your show for many years. A lot of people at NBC were briefing that the reason was declining ratings post the election, a 47% decrease in your election, in ratings from pre-election. But you told Mark Lamont Hill on his show this.
After I said on my show that the reason Americans could relate to Ukrainians in a way that they didn't relate to Palestinians, that Ukrainians are white. And so watching white people get their schools bombed was, hit different. That hit our ratings. I mean, it definitely, we could see the loss of white viewers from that moment that I said that. Right. So they were like, we don't like the name calling. And also I'm a Black woman. So, I mean, I'm sure it makes him angrier, when I say things. Maybe because I am a Global South person myself, I mean, as a Black person, we have a different empathy toward other Global South people when they are suffering. And so we're going to come at that story from a different angle and in a different way and with different kinds of empathies. And I think that's not always received very well in the news business.
Now, Joy, I mean, look, let's be honest. I don't think you were fired after all those years because of your skin color or because you're a Black woman. I think you were fired because your show just got increasingly unpopular. It happens all the time in TV. That's why you got let go. Why play the race card?
First of all, I love the fact that your play the race card is your version of the race card. You literally are so fixated on trying to racialize conversations with me, Piers, that I find it actually quite charming.
You racialize more conversations in your tenure at MSNBC than any host in history.
All right, Mark. All right, Piers. And the bottom line is you take an entire conversation that I had with Mark Lamont Hill and pick the bits that you can racialize because this is your shtick. And I get that this is your shtick.
You racialized everything, Joy. Come on.
I get it. I understand this is your shtick, Piers. And listen, game recognized the game. I get this is your game.
It's not my shtick.
And the bottom line,
it was your shtick.
It is your shtick, and everyone knows that it is.
Shtick.
Piers, we understand what it is. And it is so interesting to me that you yourself, as a white European, find that when people of color talk about race, that you believe is racializing conversations. But when people like you fixate on, well, Barack Obama was a Black president, why don't you object to that? That is racializing a conversation about the former president of the United States. But you can't put your, and I'm sure you find that charming and funny.
I find it hilarious because you're the one. You're the one who said Donald Trump.
You and your friend Donald Trump.
You said Donald Trump is a white fascist.
He is well. I agree with Mark
when Obama did the same thing,
last time I checked, is
I'm not allowed to mention his skin color.
I agree with his former chief of staff, who last I checked was not Black and said he's fascist. And Mark Milley said he's fascist to the core. Okay. So I happen to agree, and I know this is what it's important to you, with two very white gentlemen about Donald Trump's fascist tendencies.
Okay.
If that makes you sad and uncomfortable, I can't help you, Piers.
No, yes, it made me sad and uncomfortable.
Reid wraps her segment with defiant pride, owning her contentious stances and scoffing at Trump's personal attacks, underscoring the unapologetic nature of this political war.
I think it makes you a little bit of a hypocrite, but that's different. Now, President Trump reacted to your departure by saying, low-life chairman of Comcast, Brian Roberts, the owner of ratings-challenged NBC and MSNBC, has finally gotten the nerve up to fire one of the least talented people in television, the mentally obnoxious racist Joy Reid, based on her ratings, which were virtually non-existent, should have been canned long ago, along with everyone else who works there. What's your response to that?
This intense clash between Joy Reid and Piers Morgan cuts to the heart of America's polarized conversation on race, immigration, and politics. Reid condemns Trump's deportation policies as racial terror, while Morgan rebuffs with voting statistics complicating the narrative. Both hold firm on their accusations of hypocrisy and fascism, exposing fractures on the left and right. Don't miss this raw, unfiltered debate that reveals the real stakes behind America's culture wars. Hit subscribe and join us as we break down the fallout of this fiery showdown.